Hi, I'm George Kaltsudis, illustrator and comic artist, and you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app. I am Vengeance.
Welcome, everyone, to another bonus episode of the DCAU Review. I am Liam, and with me, as he always is Cal. Cal, we are back with another bonus episode talking about the ongoing Justice League Infinity comic. We're talking about issue number 5 this month, and we are continuing to unravel this deepening multiversal mystery that is afoot that we see our post-Justice League Unlimited Justice League dealing with here.
That is right. We are beginning to put together the pieces of the cracked mirror, or should I say, the mirror cracked.
That's right. Because
this is, again, part 5 of the mirror cracked, which was at one point called the cracked mirror by accident, according to a writer on the book, J.M. DeMatteis, who said that there was some confusion and the title was incorrect. So for the first couple issues. So here we are, the part 5 of the mirror cracked. And we get basically some filling in some of the blanks here. This felt, as far as issues are concerned, I thought initially last week felt like a little bit of a filler, or last month's issue felt like a little bit of a filler. We had this whole storyline with Wonder Woman on this alternate apocalypse, and Darkseid, I almost called him Darthside. Darkseid being in love with that Earth's Wonder Woman and avenging her death, but also the anti-life equation causing all of this devastation, and then the anti-life equation manifesting as Hades, or not Hades, Hades, right? So it was a very like side questy. If you're a gamer, it was like a side quest that's like, all right, this is not pivotal to the story. This was just like, let's pad the runtime here. Let's pad the playtime here. Let's add some quests on here for the player.
A bit of a side quest, yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I thought that about last month's issue. This month's issue is a lot of filler. It's a lot of filler because it's a lot of punching. Now, I will say it's great because the people being punched are all Nazis. So that's great. It's always good to see a Nazi get punched in the face. We support that here at the DCAU Review.
Controversial to say so.
Unfortunately, somewhat controversial to say. We are okay with that being a thing. But this issue fills in a little bit of the blanks as to how Superman ends up at the end of the last issue, showing up on this alternate apocalypse to rescue Wonder Woman and to transport her back across universes to hopefully get back to our Earth 1 or Earth proper, or our standard DCAU Earth, whatever you want to call it. And we kind of along the way here as Superman arrives on this apocalypse with the rest of Earth D's Justice League in tow to sort of rescue Wonder Woman and get on their javelin. They begin traveling back across the universe. We get most of the issue is actually narrated by Earth D's Martian Manhunter, which is interesting because it's a sort of mirror. Imagine that. It mirrors some of what we saw in the earlier issues as our Martian Manhunter was narrating a great deal of things. So this, we get a perspective of their Earth's Martian Manhunter, and he, believe it or not, is also responsible for guiding their javelin using his brain. So as they're sort of traversing the multiverse, attempting to get back to Superman's Earth, our Superman's Earth, Superman actually regales the tale to Wonder Woman, just how he ended up with this group of Justice Leaguers from an alternate dimension.
That's right. So we after we get Wonder Woman reuniting with her Superman, so to speak, we get her meeting the rest of the Earth D Justice League, and we find out that they have their own sort of super javelin that is also piloted by their Martian Manhunter. And we get a little bit of interaction between Wonder Woman and Superman, and then Wonder Woman and the Earth D Wonder Woman. But then we go straight into the flashback. We sort of see the freedom fighters still being very distrustful of the Earth D Superman, but our Superman is sort of able to put that at rest and gets them back on the same page. Superman, our Superman. We'll just keep saying that way, I guess. Clark. Perhaps I should just call him Clark because the other one, though I don't believe we've gotten a real name for him yet beyond Cal. Ironically enough,
not this Cal. Right?
No, Cal with a K. It seems to think, well, we know that the multiverse is coming apart, and maybe we need to focus on this and not worry so much about this fascist Nazi world that they're currently on. But Earth D's Superman reminds him that whatever happens to the multiverse, that the people of this Earth that they're on still need saving, and mentions that he would never pass up an opportunity to punch a Nazi. So from there it's and we'll certainly get more into this in visuals, but it's just several pages of the two Supermen along with the other freedom fighters with Doomsday and Metallo and General Zadista, just sort of tearing through this Nazi fortress, and they once again run afoul of Brainiac and are able to destroy him. And then they are met by an army of Vandal Savages, apparently androids made to look like Vandal Savage. And as we find out, there's a reason why he has so many robot duplicates made, which is that in this universe, at least, Vandal Savage has finally begun to age. And he's an old man now and is sort of using these robot duplicates to keep up appearances. And he sort of has this confrontation with the freedom fighters and the Supermen, and though he is pretty soundly defeated by this point, he does manage to take one last swipe and kills General Zadesta, and that sort of leads to another really good Superman moment, I think. As it's mentioned earlier that Zadesta tells Savage that he's going to face justice, he's going to stand trial, and even after he's killed, when Doomsday wants to sort of take revenge, our Superman, Clark, stops him and tells him that we have to honor Zod's wishes, and that if we're going to honor what he fought for, that we can't take bloody revenge on Savage as much as we might want to, and instead they must spare him, which is, I think, a really great Superman moment.
Yeah, it's classic. It's truth, justice. That's the second thing in the Superman thing. It's truth,
right?
Justice. Like, we need to serve justice. This is it's characteristic that is impertinent to be Superman. You can't have Superman without there being this desire to serve justice in a way that is honorable, and because if not, he's not Superman. So yes, very, very Absolutely. Great execution of that characteristic of this character.
Absolutely. And sort of as they're sort of wrapping up, they all sort of get this strong psychic signal sent to them, sort of maybe reminiscent of the one that Superman felt in Secret Origins, when his John Jones was trying to reach out to him psychically. But the two Superman go in, and there's actually a really interesting conversation they have where Cal Superman D asks, this is getting really complicated, asks Clark, do you ever think about, or do you ever feel guilty watching people die while you will continue to live on and on? And Clark tells him yes, he does, and he sometimes lies awake and ponders what it will be like years from now when everyone he knows is gone. And it's a really weird little existential thing to throw in there, but it is sort of, I think, meant to counterbalance when they find who has been reaching out to them psychically, which is in fact this world, this fascist Nazi world's John Jones, Martian Manhunter, who has been sort of locked in this strange contraption, and we find was being used by Savage to try to manipulate people, and using his mental powers to sort of enforce his will on people. But he is able to break free. They are able to free him, and he kind of has this these last few moments of life where he speaks to the Earth D Martian Manhunter and sort of reaches out to him telepathically and tells him that as the multiverse begins to sort of bleed into each other and as the walls between dimensions begin to crack, he's been able to see who is responsible for all of it, and he in fact gives that information to the Earth D Martian Manhunter before sort of fading away and dying and sort of collapsing into this puddle of goo. It's this really the end of this really tortured creature's life, and that's sort of where we sort of end up here as we go back to the present as Superman is sort of finishing out that story and telling them, and we see that the Earth D Martian Manhunter has sort of found the source of the problem, and as they all arrive where we saw our Justice League arrive in the previous issue, we see that our Justice League's golden javelin has been destroyed, and we see Hawkgirl, Vixen, Green Lantern, Batman, and our Martian Manhunter, as well as the Flash, are all sort of floating in the ether as we get to the end of that issue. And so it's a pretty dramatic ending, but as we've kind of been talking about, as I think as fun as it was, and there are some cool character moments, it doesn't feel like we moved the plot forward a ton this month.
Yeah, it was a little bit of treading water, and I it's fun. We've talked about that. Anytime we do these reviews, we intentionally don't try to be negative. There's plenty of places to go for negativity in the world. People that want to be critical. I'm sure you could probably find a podcast or people online talking about why they don't like this comic book if you want to. But so we're not ever going to be the people that just absolutely tear down new DCAU content. We will freely admit that. However, as far as comparison to the previous 4 issues, or maybe 3 of the previous 4 issues, this does feel a lot like it's treading water. That maybe it was just, hey, we have what is this, an 8-issue run or 7-issue run? 7-issue run. And we kind of want the last 2 issues to be a 2-part exciting finale. So let's spend an issue where we explain how Superman beat up a bunch of Nazis. That sounds like a fun story to tell. And like I said, there is fun had here. There's you get some interesting interactions, some of that existential questioning between the 2 Supermen as we sort of get this interaction between the 2 of them is certainly fascinating. This version of Martian Manhunter also being sort of who they call the Oracle, sort of, this used tool for Vandal Savage to have been taking advantage of and abusing is interesting. And again, adding another Martian Manhunter here and getting his perspective on things. We learn a little bit about this Earth's Martian Manhunter. Earth D's Martian Manhunter was not quite in the same vein as our Martian Manhunter, as he actually fled Mars for being like a murderer or something like that, he mentions. So a very different origin story than we were used to for our Martian Manhunter. So it's interesting. There's some things that maybe will make more sense once we get the finale and why this issue was important. But right now it just sort of feels like this was just kind of there. It was a story to tell, which is okay. Not everything has to be a big monumental, moment in it when you have a 7-issue run to tell a story. So, but if this doesn't end up being more, if there isn't stuff that ends up getting connected maybe to this issue, I think looking back at it, we might scratch your head and go, that I don't quite understand the point of that story. But there was some fun. Superman punched some Nazis. So yeah.
always fun to have that moment. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot more to glean here from a plot standpoint. There is an illusion as the 2 Martians are speaking to each other that the sort of disfigured Martian Manhunter is aware of who is behind it all. and he sort of psychically transmits that information to the Earth D Manhunter, but we don't see who that is. The Earth D Manhunter mentions that he's not able to quite decipher all of the information he was given yet. So I assume that reveal could be coming in the next issue, whether or not that's just Amazo at the end of all of this, or as we've sort of hypothesized in the past, that there could be another foe at the helm here. And I think it is possible, since we have now seen 3 different alternate Martian Manhunters. Martian Manhunters? I don't know. In this story. Maybe our ultimate foe, if there is one beyond Amazo, perhaps it is another alternate version of John Jones himself.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory. You floated it to me right before we went on the air here, and it's interesting. I think it makes as much sense as any of the other things. I think it would make for an interesting story, and I think something that maybe longtime fans of the DCAU are not looking for. We're looking for, as our main speculation has been, all right, is it going to be Darkseid? Is it going to be Brainiac? And it's interesting because both, James Tucker and J.M. DeMatteis have used those characters already, almost to tell us that, hey, this isn't going to be the big baddie. These guys have just been pawns, or, we'll give you versions of these guys, but it's not going to be one of these 2 guys. So that's as good a guess as anybody. It would make sense, this being such a Martian Manhunter focused story, and he's been continuing to have this sort of existential crisis in his own right. So for him to come face to face with a version of a Martian Manhunter that is causing this sort of rift between all of the interdimensions, maybe perhaps having the same sort of seeking that Amazo is having. So we get, Amazo seeking to find out his purpose, and Jean also has been this whole time trying to find his own purpose. So would it make sense that another version of Jean is also trying to find his purpose and place and role in the universe? So yeah, I think that's as good as a theory as I've heard yet, an original one for sure. So excited to see where our writers take this in our final 2 issues here coming up for the next couple months.
Absolutely, Cal, and that will bring us to the second half of this episode here, where we will be talking about the visuals, the art on display. Once again, we have Ethen Beavers, of course, doing the pencils and the inks, as well as Nick Filardi as the colorist, and we have AW's DC Hotkins as the letterer, and Andrew Marina as the editor. I think there is, as we mentioned, this is a very action-packed issue, and what there may not be in tremendous, plot-moving moments, we do get a lot of cool, splash pages of the 2 Supermen fighting off these Nazi forces from. A great shot of the 2 of them just sort of flying through the sky with the other freedom fighters behind them, to, these sort of floating tanks that are unleashing these giant artillery strikes against them, and they're just flying all the way through them, sort of reminiscent of some of those great battle sequences in the Savage Time episodes, and then we see the freedom fighters and the Supermen fight off this sort of strange amorphous blob of Brainiac, that sort of all these individual little cylinders that come together to form a sort of Voltron giant robot, and the 2 Supermen and the freedom fighters breaking in there. And then I do really enjoy the army of Vandal Savages. I thought that was fun and wacky.
Yeah, that is a very, like, that whole there's this the sequence there where they're first introduced, and they're sort of this attack formation, and it reminds me of some of the issue covers that you would see of like a Justice League in the 60s, or a Batman sequence in the 60s, where you have these characters that are sort of hanging off of the one side of the panel, and they're all sort of in this one angle towards the oncoming attackers of the Vandal Savage group. It's a great visual. It's a unique perspective that they chose to do for instead of just doing a straight shot horizontally, it's sort of done on this angle. And Ethen Beavers' pencils continue to be such a highlight every month. And I've really come to enjoy his style. I think initially I wasn't completely sold on, while it felt somewhat DCAU, it didn't feel completely DCAU to me, just because his characters are a little bit more expressive, I would say, than what we're traditionally shown in DC animation, certainly Justice League animation. It's a little bit more expressive. It's more akin to a Bruce Timm drawn comic or a Bruce Timm drawn, it reminds me a lot of the artwork from Mad Love, or some of the longer stories, the Batman Holiday Special stuff that we've seen that Bruce Timm has done in the DCAU. So it's a little more akin to that, where characters are a little bit more expressive. Women's eyes are a little bit larger. They're a little bit drawn more like pinups in a way. The superheroes are a little bit more barrel chested than you would see maybe in a cartoon, but that makes sense when it's in paper form. But the artwork is beautiful. Nick Filardi's colors, man, he's able to mix it up and make things look so different, even from panel to panel. The opening sequence where Superman arrives with the rest of Justice League, Earth D, and they're kind of interacting with Wonder Woman here. We get this beautiful scape with like this, you see sort of the sky outside of this cliff that they're standing on, and then we get this shot of Wonder Woman, the silhouette of Wonder Woman holding Darkseid's lifeless body, and then the very next panel below this is this shot of this Earth D javelin shooting through space, and we get all these other additional colors in there, dark blacks and deep blues, and then we get sort of this gradient color of purple to pink that works really, really well. And each page, I feel like, has a different color scheme to it, and it doesn't feel like it's ADD in a way. It doesn't feel out of place. It feels very much like it just fits together, and we're just getting a different perspective almost. Even if we're looking at the same scene, the colors changing up doesn't feel so abrupt. I think it just gives each panel and each page its own unique feel, which I really, really love.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the standout work from Mr. Filardi, who I think, if we're gonna keep our no cussing policy, I can't read the tweet. As we often do, we tweet out some a panel from the thing just to let people know that a new issue is out. But in the most PG way possible, he talked about what an honor it was for him to color Superman punching some Nazis, and he's a great guy, and it was some really exemplary work there. And once again, I think as great as some of the action sequences are, the panels and the backgrounds and stuff, I think are some of the best parts, and both with Mr. Beaver's art, and then you got so much and an increasing amount of Kirby crackle in every single issue here, and you see that sort of in the background. There's the one scene where the two Martians are sort of linking minds, and you get this very close up. It's very, very, it's both very Jack Kirby and very Bruce Timm doing Jack Kirby.
100%.
If that makes sense. Like, absolutely. This is right out of the Batman annual with the first Batman annual with Etrigan in it.
100%.
If I did not know who had drawn that, I would have guessed this was a Bruce Timm panel. It's so good, and again the stark contrast with the shadows and the blue and blacks behind them with from Mr. Filardi's art's great. The shot of that sort of grid of 8 panel or 6 panel sequence there as Zedesta is confronting Savage and is sort of reading him his rights and telling him that it's over, and then we get this shot of Savage stabbing Zod, and it looks like it's something out of like a Kurosawa film. Like it's
absolutely.
The sword going through the stomach, and it's just the silhouettes of the two men, and then this bright red coloration. It's tremendous, and it's so dramatic, and you really don't see another moment like that. And like you said, how they were able to sort of shift styles just for that sort of one very stylistic moment, I thought was really incredible. Yeah, so another really strong issue from both Mr. Beavers and Mr. Filardi. And yeah, that I think the standout visual for me is just that really deformed, awful looking Martian Manhunter blob of a body. As you mentioned, he looked a little bit like Slimer from Ghostbusters, but
definitely has some Slimer Ghostbuster look there.
But you can see like the one eye is sort of larger than the other, and there's like a tear coming out of it at one point when he's talking to Superman, and it's just the idea of this guy who's been used and abused for perhaps hundreds of years by this point by Vandal Savage, and it's just just falling apart physically and mentally, but is able to sort of hold on and give reach out to the Leaguers to give them this one last piece of advice before he fades away. I think that's obviously told in the dialogue of the story, but it's also very much told in the visuals of just how much he looks like he's in pain. He looks like he is completely miserable, and just every moment he's breathing is terrible.
No, I don't disagree with you.
It's a really sort of horrific and sad visual. And yeah, so overall, I think another really strong. I think the visuals are again, not to take anything away from the plot, but I think the visuals are certainly the number one reason to read this comic this month. Overall, they come together to tell a great story, but like we said, from a pushing the plot forward perspective, this doesn't necessarily do a ton, but a lot of great panels and great art on display from Mr. Filardi and Mr. Beavers this month.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job, and as we said, maybe a month where the story wasn't as enticing, or wasn't as didn't carry as much and didn't feel as maybe fulfilling when you get to the final page, but just the artwork alone, being able to appreciate that, and just some great hard work that's put into it, and just some beautiful colors. And whether you have the physical copy itself or whether you read on digital, I encourage you to get yourself a copy of this. Support the artists, support the DCAU, support the writers if you possibly can, because we want to see more. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you want to see more DCAU stuff. We want to see more DCAU stuff, and we want to let the writers and artists know that we appreciate their hard work, that they pour their bodies and minds into on a monthly basis, and continue to hopefully get more of this stuff. So yeah, another good one here, and excited, Liam, as we look towards next month as to what the beginning of the end begins to be here, as we kind of arrive, as you mentioned, on that final scene, and the Justice League is sort of scattered here. So I guess it's safe to assume that they sort of are floating out in space, and there's a lot of human beings there. So hoping there's some sort of explanation as to how the Justice League had survived a interdimensional crash that allowed for them to be floating. Maybe they're just floating in between universes at this point. I don't know. But whether they've had some sort of fight with Amazo or whoever the big bad is behind all of this, I guess will be revealed hopefully at the beginning of next month's issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a big cliffhanger, as we said, as we sort of leave on that page of our Justice League just being completely decimated and their ship destroyed. And our little caption for next month's issue is simply a quotation that says, "For in that sleep of death." So a very dramatic and ominous omen of what could be coming next. But as always, we thank you, everybody, for listening, and we want to hear what you think both of this issue, and more importantly, we want to hear your theories on where you think it's going. as much fun as talking about what has happened is fun. It's almost equally as fun to basically speculate about what's going to happen. That's one of my favorite things to do on this show. Certainly, if you've listened to our last couple of episodes here, we definitely want to know what you think. You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram, both places you can find us at DCAU Review. We want to know what you thought of this month's issue, what you think is going to happen next month, what you'd like to see. And, as we approach the end here, what you'd like to see in a season 2 as well. Do you want it to be an ultimate big bad? Do you want it to just be a Mazo? What do you want to see? What do you think will happen? We definitely want to hear from you. So go ahead and tweet us or leave us a comment at DCAU Review on Twitter and Instagram. Or, of course, you could leave us a comment on our YouTube video. Of course, we do our YouTube version of our podcast that is up on the Pod Tower YouTube channel, where it's not just us, it's also our friends at Tim Talk and the Watchtower Database. But if you prefer to leave a comment on this video, if you're watching us that way or watching and listening that way, we appreciate it. Whichever way you'd like to, we definitely want to hear your feedback and what you think is going to happen next.
That's right, Liam. I'm excited. Also, don't forget to check out our coverage of Batman: The Adventures Continue, which, of course, is running simultaneously, which means we have to record another podcast this week. Just kidding. They're always live whenever you press play. But yeah, excited to do that as well. So check out that and check out our standard episode this week as we cover part 2 of Batman: The Long Halloween.
Absolutely. So much content. We're doing so many shows on our own. We also might be coming up as guest stars on somebody else's show soon. So we'll have more to talk about. Once that's released, we'll certainly talk about that a little bit more. But lots and lots going on. Lots of content for you to check out here on whether you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, any other podcast app, or of course the Pod Tower YouTube channel. We thank you for checking us out, and like we said, we definitely want to hear your feedback. But until next time, I'm Liam.
And I'm Cal.
And we'll be back soon with another episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye.